Well, hello! Mwah, mwah, mwah! Thank you so much for coming to the Magical Mystery School and coming back for Astrology Class 23. And we're going to talk a little bit more about aspects, and then I promise we'll go on to transits in the next class. So I just want to kind of touch every planet and just talk about the different ways of interpreting those aspects. And there's tons of books and all sorts of things like that that can help you with interpreting aspects too. So, oh, and I always forget to say, please like and subscribe. Helps my channel a lot, and I appreciate it very much. So anyway, I'm going to put you on pause and bring you down. Or not you down, bring the camera down. Okay, we're back again. And this time we're continuing to look at this chart and the aspects. And we got through the moon and the sun last time, and we also talked about Mercury being square to the moon and how that might be expressed in the chart. So just in general, just to review, oppositions and squares, we kind of see those as a sort of a little bit of difficulty, struggle, lots of energy, forceful, things like that, things that you got to deal with. The conjunction is basically the melding of two energies, and we talked about in previous classes about how harmonious those planets might be to begin with that conjunction. And then the trions, sextiles are easy flow energy. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look, move on to Venus. And let's just go down the chart, and we see there's a square. Venus squares Jupiter, and it's 3 degrees, almost 4 degrees separating. So let's see if we can find that. Well, there's Venus. So since it's separating from Jupiter, and there's Jupiter, so that's a square. So they're both in mutable signs, Gemini and Virgo, so that makes sense. And then Venus is at 25 and Jupiter's at 22. So that's about 3-4 degrees past Jupiter. So that's why it's got that little S there, if you can see that. Hopefully you've got the magnifying glass on your computer. I use it all the time on my computer. But it has that S there for separating. Now, typically with Venus, it doesn't really matter what the transit is or the aspect. It's going to probably be pretty good for you. I mean, it usually brings in pleasant things, smooth sailing, money, things like that. Can't really argue with that for being good. And Jupiter, kind of the same way. It's sort of the big beneficent planet out there. It tends to bring in enjoyable things, you know, an abundance of things, and that sort of thing. So it's a good planet. It's considered one of the beneficent planets also. But when we see a square there between those two, the main thing when you see struggle with Jupiter, it means too much. Okay, so this might mean, you know, when you see Jupiter squaring any planet in Gemini, this may mean talking too much, okay? This might mean this person might exaggerate things, okay? Sag is also known for being good. Remember, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, so I guess I always have to give that little disclaimer. So, and sometimes with Jupiter and with Venus, they so much want it to be nice and smooth that they can maybe even get into some hypocrisy, maybe skirting across the truth to keep things pleasant, that sort of thing. So, so Venus overall is a pretty good planet, even if it's a square. If it's a trine, like here we see Venus trines Neptune. And let's see, there's that Neptune. So Venus is trying that Neptune. If I got that right? Yeah. And that's going to be, it's out of sign, but that's going to be kind of I would almost like with a trine, Neptune and Venus. Remember, Neptune's the higher octave of Venus. I think you just might never get out of bed with that one. That's too easy. Okay, Mars. We talked a little bit about Mars. Mars is conjuncting the ascendant in this one. We won't talk about the nodes right now. It's 7 degrees, so it's a little far away, but not too bad. So this is just gonna, again, this person gonna give them a lot of drive and with Uranus there, when this person walks in the room, you're gonna know it. And Mars in Cancer, I would say good for working at home. And yes, indeed, I do know that this person does work at home. Okay, so Mars can be, pretty energetic, a lot of activity. So see the squares as being more difficult with Mars. And thank God for the trines and the sextiles with Mars, because that can just give you that good energy, that motivation to keep going and going. Okay, Jupiter we've talked about. Saturn we talked about with that opposition to the Sun. And let's just look at these two aspects right down here. But first, before I move on to that, Saturn in general, now I think I've always said, Saturn's kind of our big heavy, but just remember, Saturn is a planet, the more and more you work with it, the better and better it gets. And that's one thing about astrology in general that has taught me anyway. The older you get, the better life gets. I'm not kidding. If you keep a good attitude and follow your P's and Q's, if you're out doing dishonest things and stuff like that, Saturn's going to catch up to you. But I would assume probably the majority of people watching this channel are probably pretty cool people. Okay, so and also with Jupiter, it's also the planet of expansion. So wherever we see Jupiter, we can see that things get bigger and bigger and bigger. So watch out if you do, if Jupiter, well, we'll talk about transits more, but with Jupiter coming through that first house can make you gain weight. Yes. Okay. So, but it's that first planet beyond the personal planets. Okay, so now when we're looking here, especially with this Uranus square Neptune, okay, Uranus square Neptune, all right, and it's only 3 degrees separating, so that's pretty tight. So where are they? There's Uranus and there's Neptune. But now start to remember that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are generational planets. Uranus spends 7 years in each sign, and Pluto can spend up to 30 years in a sign. So when I see something like Uranus square Neptune, yeah, it's tight. It's almost just about 4 degrees, but you're going to see a lot of people born within even a year around this time that's going to have a similar aspect and maybe even a tighter aspect. So a lot of people in that age group are going to have that similar situation or aspect to deal with. So it makes it a little bit easier, I think. Where you have to watch out for is, okay, like this Uranus is conjunct pretty close to the ascendant. Yeah, I guess it's beyond 10 degrees, but let's say it was even closer to that ascendant. Well, whenever we start to see one of these generational planets in combination with a personal planet like the moon or Mars or the ascendant, Venus, Mercury, and even Jupiter and Saturn, that will start to give it more weight. When it's just that generational planet, just remember, unless you start seeing a repetition of that meaning, that that square might not be quite as much a problem, because a whole bunch of people are going through it together. Okay, now Neptune, wherever we see Neptune in an aspect, that's where we can kind of start to see a little bit more of that loosey-goosey, remember the ocean, very spiritual. Like I knew someone that had a Mars-Neptune conjunction, and it was tight, okay? So this person, really encourage them to do Tai Chi, do yoga, do something physical that's spiritual. So that's how you start to meld those. And if it's a square, Neptune square a planet, it might even cause a little bit of disorientation, can't remember, forgetfulness, confusion. So if you have any parts of your life like that, look for Neptune and see if there's some way to work with an aspect to help clarify that. Okay, and then we've already mentioned Pluto was conjunct the moon here. And again, Pluto, this is an emotional sign, because that's a conjunction, that's going to give some power to that moon. But this person is going to experience a lot of emotional ups and downs, ups and downs. They're going to feel a lot of, where they really have to totally reevaluate their emotional situation. They may fall in love, break up, fall in love, break up with that Pluto there in conjunction. And it could hurt too. So don't be surprised if there's some hurt feelings in there too with the moon Pluto. Especially in Leo, that's getting pretty sensitive. So I hope that's helped you start to put together how to create more aspects. In fact, I'm just going to put you on pause here for a second. Okay, so I hope that's helped you sort of start to make some sense out of this chart that you're looking at, and hopefully you can start to look at those aspects and actually start make some sense. And really, part of what I'm hoping too is for these classes that you can watch. There's some wonderful astrologers out there. I think I already mentioned Rick Levine, Levine, who does a monthly astrological update. Hopefully now you can watch that and it has a lot more meaning to you. And there's also another astrologer, British astrologer named Pam Gregory. And she's fabulous too. She does a new moon and a full moon update every month and does the 2 weeks in between. And she's a little bit more out there, talking about Corker belt objects and solar flares and things like that, but super fun, super interesting. So that would be 2 recommendations there. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much, and just remember to like and subscribe and hit the playlist if you need to go back and look at other lessons. And we'll go to transits, and you may just say, this is too much, I'm going to look at transits, and we'll go over those next time. All right, thank you guys. Just remember, from there to here, from here to there, funny things are everywhere. Bye-bye.